Will Goldstein here, thekingscourt.com, and don't forget to subscribe if you like this channel here, and it helps other people, draws more people to come to the channel. Again, spread the word and tell your friends. Again, you can always check out my music on the About page of this channel. Just follow the links. And this is The Ancient World and Paganism. Subtitle to this could be The Intrinsic Way of Common Man. So it's kind of like the peasants back in the... The word actually, you'll find out soon enough, but the word came from the early times of Christianity. That's where the word pagan actually came from. So paganism, from the Latin paganus, rural, rustic, relating to the countryside, was first used in the 4th century by early Christians for people in the Roman Empire who practiced polytheism or ethnic religions other than Judaism or Christianity. Other terms that applied to the characteristics of these people were villagers, the unlearned. In the time of the Roman Empire, individuals fell into the pagan class either because they were increasingly rural and outside the city, so they were regarded as unsophisticated or narrow-minded relative to the Christian population, because they were not milites Christi, or soldiers of Christ. Other terms used for them were Hellene, Gentile, and heathen. Ritual sacrifice was an integral part of ancient Greco-Roman Empire or religion, and was regarded as an indication of whether a person was pagan or Christian. Paganism has broadly connotated the religion of the peasantry. So during and after the Middle Ages, so kind of going through a little bit of history, but I'll be going back and forth sort of. In the Middle Ages, the term paganism was applied to any non-Christian religion, and the term presumed a belief in false gods, according to Christians. In the 19th century, paganism was adopted by various artistic groups inspired by the ancient world. In the 20th century, modern paganism, these modern pagan movements and polytheistic reconstructionists, it's a movement that reconstructs a part of the past. That's what a reconstruction is. They're trying in these modern movements to go back into the past and to reconstruct it. So modern pagan traditions, which I'll be doing more of in the next lecture. But anyway, modern pagan traditions often incorporate beliefs or practices such as nature worship that are different from those of the largest world religions. So getting back to old pagan religions, their beliefs come from anthropological research records, archaeological artifacts, and the historical accounts of ancient writers of antiquity. Most modern pagan religions are pantheistic, panentheistic, polytheistic, or animistic, but some are even monotheistic, so they can't really put into their idea of God is whatever their idea of God is, so they can't really put it into a box. And there's no real structure above them to organize that into some sort of systematic theology. So it is crucial to stress that these ancient people groups did not call the religion they practiced pagan. They didn't call themselves pagan because the term was created, like I said, by the early Christians as a way of labeling the other, the antithesis that was central to the process of Christian self-identification. They're not us. And so throughout history, it was generally used in a derogatory sense. They're unbelievers, they're not going along, they don't believe in Christ. They're just the people, the peasants out in the field. They have their own beliefs. So it was a derogatory sense. That's really unfortunate that that's the way they looked at it. The pagans were seen as polytheists, as inferior and commonplace by Christians living in towns and cities who were more easily converted than those in remote regions. So you go into the cities, they can be converted, but these people out in the hills, forget it. their old ways tended to persist as they were seen as uncultured and backwards. Further complications you can see where resentment steps in here. Instead of just loving them and, trying to reason with them that way. Further complications developed because during the early days of Christianity, the Christians were seen as atheists. So this all gets very confusing. So they were seen as atheists because they did not adopt the ideas of the Roman state in regard to their religion. So as the early Christians saw themselves as soldiers of Christ, as seen in Tertullian's De Corona Militis 11.5, where the Christian is referred to as paganus, or civilian, pagans. So I just want to clarify this so you understand. In Rome, okay, in a Hellenistic culture, they had their pantheon of gods, okay? So a Christian didn't believe in their pantheon of gods, so they therefore were atheists, non-believers, pagans. It's really convoluted. It's all upside down. And so that's actually why the early Christians were martyred. They were martyred for being atheists because they didn't believe in the Roman gods. It's really kind of crazy, to be honest with you. So you have to understand how these terms are being used. It depends on what period you're talking about and who's saying it and what they mean by that. So anyway, by the 5th century, pagans, and so from the viewpoint of the Christian community, were persons outside the bounds of the Christian community. Some thought that the old gods had taken greater care of the city than the Christian gods. In response, Augustine of Hippo wrote The City of God as a testimony against the pagans. In it, he contrasted the fallen city of man, great book by the way, with the city of God, of which all Christians were ultimately citizens, and the foreign invaders were not of the city as they were rural. The term pagan eventually came to mean infidel, heretic, unbeliever, and idolater. If you really want to understand pagan ways, City of God is an incredible. I was very surprised when I read that book. The huge amount of that book is identifying pagan culture. So it's like it's both. It's portraying them again. So in order for Augustine to make that portrayal, he has to clearly identify the pagan culture, which he most certainly does, and then the city of God, so that they can be seen as polar opposites. So in the Hellenistic culture of Hellene, during the newly Christianizing efforts in the Roman Empire, Koinonia Greek, so that's Hellenistic Greek, which is also the same Greek that was used for the Bible, so biblical Greek. But anyway, it became associated with traditional polytheistic religion of ancient Greece. Hellenic culture was the dominant pagan culture in the Roman East, and it's variously called the Roman paganism, Religion Romano, or cultus deorum, a cult of the gods, because they had their Olympian gods. Christianity became known as non-Jews to the Romans, so they couldn't really, so they were just non-Jews. They accepted the Jews, okay? You find all this out if you read Justin Martyr. But anyway, so they accepted the Jews, okay, because they had always accepted the Jews and their belief in God. But the Christians were not Jews, and they weren't in the system of, the Roman Hellenistic pantheon, so therefore they were atheists. They were pagans. Okay, so anyway, so like I said, Christianity became known as non-Jews to the Romans and atheists, and to the Christians, Hellenistic culture was referred to as non-Christian. So in other words, the pagans of the Hellenistic culture with their Roman system of pantheon, to the Christians, they were just non-Christians. Hellenism was centered around polytheistic and animistic worship. Devotees worshiped the Greek gods, which are the Olympians, divinities, and spirits of nature, such as nymphs, underworld deities, and heroes. Eventually, some pagans began to defiantly call themselves Hellenes. So you have the system, like I said, so the interplay of these words, you know, are we talking about Roman paganism, or are we talking about paganism that's associated with the peasants? So, you know, there's... Anyway, it's mostly, this video is about the paganism that's associated with the peasants. Heathen comes from Old English Hylin, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's non-Christian or Jewish. In Old Norse, Heonin, it can also be derived from Gothic Haifi, dwelling on the heath, or even from the Greek ethnos via Armenian hethenos. The term is now used in the forms of heathens, self-identity, in heathenry and heathenism as alternatives for the Germanic neo-pagan movement. I guess it exists today. It is perhaps safe to say that before Christianity, these pagans had no religion at all in the sense that which the word is used today. They didn't really have a religion, a set structure. They had no tradition apart from philosophical debate. So they just kind of, whatever they came up with, well, hey, that's the way systematic theology is, sort of based on revelation too, though. But they just used philosophical debate, no organized system or beliefs, which we call now systematic theology. So they were not asked by anyone to commit themselves to any authoritative structure peculiar to the area that they lived in, and their commitment was to their family and perhaps maybe to their local tribe or clan. So in other words, who are you to tell me what to do? I have my family, I have my people, and these are our ways. What resulted was a diverse array of cults, with paganism adopting its polytheism. We believe what we believe, yet not all pagans were strictly polytheists. To Christians, that was important whether or not someone worshipped the one true God. So Christians see the one true God, the Holy Trinity. So you have Jesus Christ in there, the Son of God. So if they didn't worship, you know, Christ and the Holy Trinity, then they didn't worship the true God. Those who did not, whether they were polytheists, monotheists, or atheists, it didn't really matter, since they were outside the church and thus pagan. Classical pagans had a number of deities to venerate. Paganism traditionally encompasses the collective pre- and non-Christian cultures in and around the classical world. So we refer to them basically, they could have existed before the Christians came, after the Christians, they just weren't Christians. You know, so anyway, so and this included also from people the Greco-Roman, the Celtic, the Germanic, the Slavic tribes, and even stretching far into prehistory, where it naturally developed in the rural community. So long before those were deemed pagans. For example, back in the time of Homer, paganism came to be seen by Christians as a branch of hedonism, as it held no restraints, thus representing those who are sensual, materialistic, self-indulgent, unconcerned with the future, as there is no concept of heaven or hell for them, and uninterested in more mainstream religions of other city people like us. You can see what's happening here. You know, just people just the other is you know, I'm kind of referring kind of in line with the way that Hegel uses the word the other. So G.K. Chesterton wrote, "The pagan set out with an admirable sense to enjoy himself. By the end of his civilization, he had discovered that a man cannot enjoy himself and continue to enjoy anything else." So Chesterton is a famous Catholic theologian. In sharp contrast, Swinburne, the poet, would comment on this same theme. "Thou hast conquered, O pale Galilean. The world has grown gray from thy breath. We have drunken of things Lithian and fed on the fullness of death." So Lethean means causing oblivion or forgetfulness of the past. So the term "you have conquered, O Galilean" is supposed to be referring to the dying words of the Emperor Julian. He had tried to reverse the official endorsement of Christianity by the Roman Empire. So anyway, Petts notes how, Petts notes how various spiritual, religious, and metaphysical ideas branded as pagan from diverse cultures were studied in opposition to Abrahamism. In early anthropology, a binary he links to ethnocentrism and colonialism. Now we're getting into herbs. So herbs were also considered sacred in European pagan beliefs. The best known example is the mistletoe. The European mistletoe, Viscum aurum, figured prominently in Greek mythology and is believed to be the golden bough of Aeneas, ancestor of the Romans. The Norse god Balder was killed with mistletoe. Now, Achilles, also known as Achilles, is the protogenus of misery and poison. So now we're talking about poison. She is also the keeper of the death mist and resides in Tartarus. She is the daughter of Chaos and Nyx. In other words, poison, if you want to use poison in ancient pagan, witchcraft probably, or some form of that sort of idea, then you give poison to someone and kill somebody. For example, poison like Cleopatra and Antony took or something. Love potions were often used in religious rituals with the belief that the gods would grant the drinker the power to make someone fall in love with them. Herbs were usually mixed with a drink or a mushy stew in bowls of large cauldrons. They were also soaked in water and the liquid sprinkled or made unguent to rub on the body. Wands were occasionally used to transmit or activate an herbal liquid or potion. For the pagans, different gods performed different functions involving life, death, health, childbirth, and every mountain, forest, stream, or even family had its own god. The pagans put their emphasis on this life, and they did not concern themselves whether there was an afterlife or not, though there were exceptions in Homer's Odyssey or Virgil's Aeneid. On one pagan's tomb, here's a quote, "I was not, I was, I'm not, I care not." A pagan philosophy. In the ancient pagan pantheon, daemonia, which basically means demons, but in a different context, could mean good or bad spirits. So in Christian context, demons means bad spirits, but the actual word daemonia, it's just spirit. It could be good or it could be bad. It's believed that concepts that were important to the ancient pagan were the notion of Earth Mother or Mother Earth, ancestor worship, animism, often involving syncretism with various religion and spiritual practices, involving the worship of the earth, the physical universe, belief in spiritual beings such as goddesses, gods, nature spirits, fairies, elves, power animals, and to some ancestral spirits. They didn't really believe in afterlife for the most part, but maybe some of them did. And those had ancestral spirit worship. So in order to induce altered states of consciousness, pagans utilized drumming, visualization, chanting, singing, and dancing. So again, before I wrap up here, you always have a chance to subscribe to this channel and make any comments that you want. You just hit that, if you want to subscribe, you just hit that little button down there. It'd be good to see more people subscribing. Certainly more and more people have been watching the videos. I keep doing the videos. That's probably why they keep watching them. So, it's going up and down, but it's generally going up. And again, you always have a chance to check out my music here, because just look at the About page and follow the links, and you can listen to my music, download my music, buy my music, You have all kinds of opportunities. There's radio channels. Yeah, so next will be more of the modern pagan movement or neo-paganism, and that's a follow-up to this video. I hope you come back.